evaluate Colleen Siadak. So as he comes,
No, Lisa.
That's me.
oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Colleen. I'm with that.
Oh,
You're staying.
you have two evaluations on or just one?
Just one.
Yeah. Oh, we're out of order, but Madam Toastmaster, since I made a mistake this far, let's just go ahead and finish. Would you please welcome Eric Harrison? Would you welcome
So Lisa, you have a tough task in front of you next week, correct? You've got an hour-long presentation, and you are trying to break the ice right out of the gate. They need to know why am I going to sit here for an hour? What do you do? Are you incredible? All of those things. So that's a tough task, and it can be really overwhelming. And I know that you've been thinking about this for quite some time, and you kind of just want to get the task over. That's just a challenge to come from that mindset and proceed. And I think you're going to do great next week because you're just going to be yourself. But the things that I like, I'll focus in there first. I believe that it's kind of like a cookie. You have the flour, the butter, the chocolate chips, and all the other stuff. If you don't put them all together the correct way, it might not taste like a chocolate chip cookie. The good things that you had in there were, you've got audience participation. I know you had two versions. So the first one, you had audience participation, which I think is good because that gives people, kind of puts them on notice, hey, I'm going to need to pay attention here. I might be called on. You define what internet marketing coaching is, which I think is good because they're going to want to know that. You define or help them understand why they should listen to you, so you build credibility. And then you also kind of touch on a client testimonial, which you may be doing more later. You've mentioned Google ranking, integrated strategy, those things I think are very good to have when you're doing a presentation. And there are some other strong points, but just I'm going to kind of fast forward for a moment to what I think you could do differently. Perhaps focus on the first version. The second version you came up to later this morning was you risked potentially blemishing your credibility when I think everyone goes through a period of time initially where they struggle to figure out what they want to do. But when people are trusting you to add expertise and value for them, they probably don't want to hear about you sort of falling into it, and then you talk about your education, and then it seems like you just leap forward into you delivering the service to them. So what I'm saying is tell more of a story, package it in a way that, first of all, you tell them what you're going to tell them. You do a strong introduction, you tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them, I didn't see a body in, and again, I'm not looking at the rest of the presentation, so it's hard for me to understand where this was going to go. But help them understand what you're going to tell them and potentially tell a story initially, because internet marketing coaching, I think people have an idea of what that is, but it's tough to get into their mind what exactly that is to them and how it's going to benefit them. And there's probably a lot of components in that, so maybe focus in on one or two or maybe three to help them understand what their appetite for why they should engage you at another point in time. It's going to be tough to tell them everything that you do because you do so much. So focus in on one or two things. You're very personable, you're very likable. I think you're not going to have any problem there. You speak very clearly. The first time around you didn't use any of your notes, but the second time you did. So I don't know if maybe you want to focus in on your first option if you're trying to evaluate where you want to go with this. Maybe choose the first one because you seem more comfortable and confident there. You used more of your notes on the second pass. And I believe that you've probably prepared adequately and maybe too much, and you're probably overthinking this. I know it's hard, you've got an hour to talk, but give yourself a structure and an outline. Are you talking off of slides?
Yes, I'll have.
You are. Okay, so you'll have the benefit of telling them what they're going to see and help them sort of move through the presentation. But otherwise, I think all the ingredients in the cookie are there. You just need to give people a recipe and kind of help yourself out in that way. Thank you.
Now we want to introduce Stan. Stan Murrow is going to come up and evaluate Lisa. Colleen. I cannot get this right.
That's all right.
Do a good job here.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. I always enjoy your speeches, Colleen. I think that they have an impact on our club. And one bit of evidence about that is a while back you gave a speech about reducing, reusing, recycling. And I always think about that in the morning before I come here because I bring my cup instead of grabbing one of the paper cups. As I look around the room, I see that a number of other people do that too. So you do have an impact, and I hope that this speech will have an impact as well, because I thought your message was very salient and good and can help us improve and reach that sanctuary. Now, your evaluation on the Body Speaks has 10 different points. I'm not going to cover all those, but I am going to select 3 that I think kind of highlight the speech. The first one is posture. That's one of the first things I noticed. When you came up, your posture was very good, and you had a great balance. I thought it lended a lot of credibility to your speech along with your dress. It kind of posed you as an expert in the subject matter. You weren't too rigid like a soldier. You weren't too relaxed. It was right in the middle. It was very good. So the posture was very good. The gestures, the most obvious gestures were the exercises themselves. But I did notice that you had some other movements, and your gestures were very purposeful. You said 4 different points of face. There were some others too. One thing that I struggle with is just nervous movement and gestures that really don't have any meaning. And you didn't do that, which is great. The other one that I'll bring is eye contact. Now, eye contact can be tricky, especially for me. One thing, my life group from the church I go to Journey here, we have life groups. We don't go to Sunday school. So our life group uses several different lesson plans from Andy Stanley. And I've noticed over the last few weeks when I've been watching it, in addition to looking at his message, I kind of analyze the speech as well. That's what we do. And he is very, very good at eye contact. One thing that I struggle with and some other club members struggle with is just kind of look at either the tennis match or just kind of looking around and not really making eye contact, just kind of looking around. And he is very good, and you were very good at actually making meaningful eye contact, not for too long, but moving around from person to person, making that meaningful eye contact, which was part of your evaluation. And that's very good as well. A couple of points of polish would be, I thought that you buried your lead. I was the editor of my high school newspaper. That's one thing our advisor would always talk about is don't bury the lead. I thought your introduction, when you started talking about face, was okay. I thought you buried your lead in that your real introduction was when you were talking about your grandchildren, talking about the song they sang in the sanctuary, and bringing that into the face, saying it's important to honor our sanctuary, and that's what God has given us, and then talking about the face. I think that's your lead, that's your introduction. So don't bury your lead. The other thing was try to leave enough time at the end to talk about the face at the bottom of the card. I think you maybe just ran out of time and wasn't able to cover that, but that's a little bit of burying the lead as well. That's the main reason why we're doing the exercise and why we're trying to focus on our sanctuary and get that focus on God. So talk about that a little bit more at the end and kind of round it out. But overall, great, impactful speech. Thank you very much, Colleen.
Fortunately, I was saved by great evaluations. Now I want to ask the timer, if the timer might give us a report so that you can begin thinking about your ballot. You want to tear it off. We're going to be passing it over to Carlos. So think about this. If she gives a report, you will fill it out and pass it so that as we finish up, we can finish on time.